Okay, let's dive straight into something really fascinating today.
Let's do it.
We often think of the human brain as, this incredibly complex biological machine, right? Processing things, controlling the
Good
body.
interview.
But what if it's built for something
Hmm.
more? What if it's not just like a local processor?
What if it's designed to connect?
Exactly. Connect with unseen forces, maybe even connect with other minds.
That's really the core idea we're digging into today. It's pulled directly from our source material.
Right. We've been looking at these really thought-provoking parts of Think13.pdf.
We have some quite surprising claims in there.
And our mission, you could say, is to really unpack those claims about what the brain might be capable of. We're looking at concepts that kind of bridge science, psychology, and, well, the intangible.
Stuff you can't easily measure.
Yeah. So get ready, because this might challenge some basic ideas about how thought actually works.
Absolutely. One of the main concepts the source puts forward, and it mentions drawing on observations with people like, Dr. Alexander Graham Bell and Dr. Elmer R. Gates,
Okay.
is this idea that every human brain acts like both a broadcasting and a receiving station for thought.
A broadcasting and receiving station, like a radio, but for thoughts.
Yeah.
That's quite a jump from neurons firing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
The source basically suggests that much like radio uses the ether, these vibrations of thought are sent out by brains, and potentially they can be picked up by other brains through some kind of unseen medium.
Okay, so if the brain is this thought radio system, what are the parts? According to the source, what's the machinery involved?
Right. So the source breaks it down and talks about the creative imagination.
Creative imagination.
That's presented as the receiving set, the part that can supposedly pick up these thought vibrations from others.
Okay, creative imagination is the receiver. Makes sense in a way. What about sending? How do my thoughts get out there?
That job is given to this subconscious mind.
Ah, the
It's
subconscious.
described as the sending station.
Sure.
It's what actively broadcasts thoughts, again, through this ether-like thing.
Got it. Subconscious sends, creative imagination receives. But, how do you turn the sender on? Is it just always broadcasting whatever pops in there?
Good question. According to the source, the way you activate this broadcasting station is through auto-suggestion.
Autosuggestion. So, consciously feeding ideas to your subconscious.
Kind of, yeah. It's how you impress thoughts onto the subconscious so it can then broadcast them out.
Okay, sender, receiver, activator. But is it just raw thought, like data packets zipping back and forth? Or does something need to, I don't know, power it up?
This is where emotion comes in. The
Yeah.
course says it's absolutely crucial.
Emotion.
Yeah, emotions, intense ones, positive or negative, are described as what step up the mind's rate of vibration.
Stepping up the vibration. Okay, what does that actually do in this model? Why is that important for sending or receiving?
Well, a higher vibration rate is said to have two main effects. First, it makes your mind way more receptive to thoughts coming in from outside.
More sensitive. Okay.
And second, and this is critical for broadcasting, it gives your own thoughts feeling. It imbues them with feeling.
Adding feeling to the thought. And why does the sending side need that?
Because, the source argues, thought mixed with emotion, thought that has that feeling, that's what the subconscious mind, the sender, can actually grab onto and broadcast effectively.
So, no emotion, no broadcast power.
Or at least much less power. It's the emotional charge that gives the thought its reach, its energy in this system.
And the source singles out one emotion, doesn't it, as having the highest intensity for this?
It does, yes. The emotion of sex. It's specifically mentioned as causing a significantly faster rate of brain vibration compared to when it's not present. And the result of what the source calls sex transmutation, it's presented as boosting the vibration rate of thoughts dramatically. This makes the creative imagination much more receptive to ideas from the ether, as they put it.
So it's the really intense emotions that supercharge the system.
Essentially, yes. Thought modified by these major emotions vibrates at a much higher rate, and that's what's supposedly capable of passing between brains.
Okay, let me try and summarize this model then. Subconscious is the sender, creative imagination is the receiver, auto-suggestion turns the sender on, and emotions, especially powerful ones like the one mentioned, are the fuel. They crank up the vibration, add feeling to the thought.
Which is needed for both powerful sending and better receiving.
Right. It's a whole framework based on mental energy and vibration, not just chemistry.
Exactly. Which, leads pretty naturally into the source's wider discussion about intangible forces.
Ah, the unseen stuff.
Right. The point being made is that we humans have, historically focused almost entirely on our physical senses, on things we can see, touch, weigh, measure.
Which makes sense, doesn't it? That's how we navigate the physical world.
True, true. But the source really challenges that as being maybe too limited a view. It argues that we are actually constantly controlled and influenced by forces we can't see, intangible forces.
You mean like the sheer power in ocean waves?
No.
Or gravity holding everything together? You can't really see gravity.
Exactly. Or even electricity. The source points out we rely on it constantly, but admits, and this is almost a direct quote, he does not even know what electricity is, where it comes from, or what is its purpose.
That's a fair point.
So the question posed is, if these incredibly powerful unseen forces are fundamental everywhere else, why assume the most complex thing we know, the human mind, is limited only to interacting with tangible stuff?
And when you consider the brain's complexity, I mean, the numbers the source throws out are staggering. 10 to 14 billion nerve cells just in the cornfield.
Billions, yeah.
Arranged in networks so complex, the connections are described by a number like 1 followed by 15 million ciphers.
It's astronomical. Dr. C. Judson Herrick is quoted saying that numbers used in astronomy are insignificant compared to this complexity.
Wow.
So the source basically asks, is it really plausible that this unbelievably intricate machine exists only for processing sensory data and moving muscles?
Or could it also be the hardware for communicating with these other intangible forces?
Precisely. Could that be part of its function?
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me because the source doesn't just leave it there as a philosophical idea. It brings in what sounds like actual scientific research.
Right. Shifts gears a bit.
It talks about Dr. Ryan's work at Duke University on telepathy and clairvoyance.
Which the source lumps together under extrasensory modes of perception, ESP, basically.
Yeah, and it mentions a New York Times editorial summarizing Ryan's research, involving, what, over 100,000 tests?
A huge number of tests, yeah. The experiments apparently involved people trying to name cards they couldn't see. No sensory information possible.
And the result. The source highlights this outcome. It sounds pretty stunning.
It does. It quotes the success rate as being so high, statistically, that there was, and this is the quote, not one chance in many a million. It was just luck or coincidence.
Not one chance in many million. That's hard to ignore, if accurate.
It suggests something was going on beyond just guessing, right? The source then summarizes what Ryan's results, as reported by a writer named E.H. Wright, seemed to indicate about how these abilities worked.
Okay, what did they find? Or what did the source say they found?
First, they didn't seem sensory. No known physical organ involved.
Okay, non-sensory. What else?
And this is maybe the biggest challenge to, conventional physics. They apparently worked just as well over hundreds of miles as they did in the same room.
Distance didn't matter.
Seemingly not. And the source explicitly points out why that's significant.
Because physical things like radio waves or light get weaker with distance. Inverse square law.
Exactly. Physical radiation declines with distance. These abilities, in Ryan's tests, reportedly didn't.
Which would seem to rule out any simple physical explanation we currently have?
That's the implication drawn in the source, yes.
Yeah.
It really highlights how that reported finding bumps up against standard physics.
But did anything affect these abilities?
Yes, that's interesting too. The source notes they did seem to vary with the person's physical state.
How so?
Apparently, they got better when the subject was wide awake, alert. They were lowered by narcotics, but raised by stimulants.
Okay, so alertness helps. And it wasn't just passive, right? Didn't it say something about effort?
It did. The people who did best were described as trying to do his best. It required conscious effort, active engagement, not just zoning out.
Fascinating. So non-sensory, distance-independent, affected by alertness and drugs, requires effort. What was the overall conclusion drawn from Ryan's work, according to the source?
Well, the conclusion, or maybe hunch presented, again via E.H. Wright, was that telepathy and clairvoyance are probably the same basic faculty.
Just manifesting differently?
Kind of. Showing similar strength, both unaffected by distance or physical barriers. And there was even a suggestion that other weird stuff, like prophetic dreams or premonitions, might also be part of this same underlying ability.
Wow, that's a big umbrella.
It is. And importantly, the source does encourage the reader, look at the evidence presented and make up your own mind. Weigh it yourself.
Which is always good advice, especially with claims like these.
Definitely. So moving on from that research hint, the author then shares something more personal, a practical method they used.
Oh, with their associates.
Yes, with 2 staff members. A method they relate to these ideas about stimulating the mind and maybe connecting with unknown sources of knowledge.
Okay, so how did they try to put this into practice? What did they actually do?
It sounds fairly simple, actually. It involved a close working relationship, like a harmonious alliance between the three of them.
Harmony seems key again.
It does. Their method was to sit down together with a very clear, specific purpose or subject they wanted to tackle, and then just engage in focused, harmonious discussion about it.
So, like a very focused, collaborative brainstorming session. But maybe with this expectation of tapping into something extra?
That seems to be the idea. And the result, as the author describes it, was that by kind of blending their three minds together in this focused, harmonious way,
Yeah.
they consistently found solutions to problems.
Mm.
They accessed knowledge that felt, and this is the quote, definitely outside his own experience.
Outside their own experience, meaning knowledge that none of them individually seemed to possess beforehand.
That's the implication. Like it didn't just come from their combined existing knowledge, but
Oh.
from somewhere else.
Somewhere else, connecting back to those intangible forces or that ether, maybe.
The source strongly implies that connection, yes.
Yeah.
And it explicitly links this procedure, this method they used, back to the mastermind principle.
Ah, the mastermind.
It describes their little group work as a practical, simple application of that concept using combined, harmonious minds to stimulate thought.
A practical way to potentially tap into something bigger through focused, collaborative thinking. And didn't the source suggest others could do this too, referencing Carnegie?
Yes, it suggests that students of this philosophy could use a similar plan, referencing the Carnegie formula, in that context to get results. It's presented as a learnable technique.
Harnessing that stimulated, harmonious mental energy. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, there was that brief note the source included, adding some context about the time it was written, about the Great Depression.
Oh, right. Yeah, just a quick mention. Viewing the Depression not just as, terrible hardship, but also as a potential blessing.
A blessing. How so?
By forcing a kind of reset,
Yeah.
creating a new starting point, an opportunity for everyone to rebuild or rethink, a catalyst for change.
That's a powerful way to frame adversity, seeing disruption as an opening for renewal.
It is a different perspective.
So what a journey through this material. We've gone from the brain possibly being this subtle energy broadcaster and receiver,
Yeah, shaped and powered by emotion.
through the idea that our world might be governed by unseen, intangible forces.
Then looking at those hints from Dr. Ryan's research into extrasensory stuff.
And finally, exploring a really practical method, the mastermind idea, for maybe tapping into other realms of knowledge through focused, harmonious collaboration.
It's quite a picture, isn't it? A vision that really asks us to reconsider the limits of mind, maybe even reality itself.
Absolutely. And it leaves you thinking. If the brain is capable of receiving thoughts from outside sources, if focusing and blending minds harmoniously can access knowledge outside his own experience.
How might that change things?
Yeah, how might that change the way you, listening right now, approach learning or tackling problems or working with other people?
What else might be possible if we started paying more attention to these intangible aspects of thought and mind, the kind explored in these pages?
Something to definitely mull over.